AltaVista, the highest view in contractor marketing.
If you're not listening to the angle, you will surely fall behind.
Are you going to exist in your space, or are you going to dominate?
Trust the process.
Are you planning for today or adapting for the future?
This is the AltaVista Angle. Hey everybody, welcome to the AltaVista Angle, a podcast designed for contractors to learn what is going on in their industry, the latest trends and best practices to maintain your business and its relevance today and in the future. We are the industry leader in marketing for contractors. We cover the entire space, from website development and online marketing to search engine optimization, sales trainings, and even exit planning. We are your all-in-one contractor resource. We have you covered. I am Aaron Hockel, partner at AltaVista Strategic Partners. I'm here today with my business partners, Nichols and Bryan Dunkel, along with Managing Partner Ray McLaughlin. Let me start out by introducing myself, right? So again, Aaron Hockel, one of the partners at AltaVista. I spend most of my time here today really working with our current clients on helping them, maximize their brand exposure and really grow their business with the people they want to do more business with, right? I've been here for 14 years. I spend most of my time, again, working with clients, and I'll usually catch me at a bunch of trade shows, on some podcasts, and, now on the AltaVista Angle. The next person I'd like to have jump on here today is Bryan Nichols. Bryan, you were one of the co-founders of AltaVista. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here every day?
Hi, yeah. So my name is Bryan Nichols. I'm a partner here at AltaVista, and I'm in charge of the database operations team here at AltaVista. It's really my department's job to make sure that our database is clean, it's good, and it provides what it needs to for our clients.
Hey, Bryan, really quick follow-up on that. How important is data in 2025?
It couldn't be more important. I mean, that's really it's the backbone of a lot of the stuff that we do in my department. Making sure that everything is up to date, organized, clean, and that we really have a pulse on it really goes a long way.
Yeah, I know we say we're the nation's leading contractor marketing company. I've also heard Ray and Bryan Dunkel really say we're also a data and information company. So certainly crucially important to all businesses and kind of being successful today. Bryan Dunkel, I just chatted your name real quick. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us tell the audience what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am also one of the partners at AltaVista. This is my 11th year with a company, and a lot of my role is focused on client retention, business development, working with our clients day to day, having our finger on the pulse of what's going on, right? Market trends, and how can we better serve our clients? Because ultimately our client success is our success and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool, right? Last person, Ray McLaughlin, right? Co-founder, managing partner, AltaVista. Excited to have you on chatting with us. You bring a ton of experience, right? Why don't you tell us your background, how you came to lead AltaVista, and kind of just give us a quick overview of yourself.
Yeah, just thanks for having me. I graduated from University of Maryland. I'm dating myself, going back to 1991 here. So started my career in sales and marketing at Xerox, believe it or not. Stumbled into a contracting business when I was 35 years old. Had the creativity of naming it McLaughlin Electric. And we grew that company from 0 employees to about 35 employees using database marketing. Back then, guys, we were using hard mail and dialers. We actually had dialers in our electrical business, calling through a database of prospects of property and facility managers to get us new business opportunities. It was a great business. We really enjoyed it. We were a commercial service company doing malls, shopping centers, apartments, mostly repairs and project type work. Started to realize the business is very challenging, right? You're a lot of moving parts every day. You're dealing with labor. You're dealing with who's going to show up on Mondays. I think I'd hit my limit, decided to sell the company. We'd grown at 3,700%. A big group out of Washington, D.C. came in and bought us, a multidisciplined organization that had virtually every service, from asphalt to painting to electrical to building restoration to line striping and power washing. I became the chief marketing officer of that company. In addition, I ran 2 operating businesses. I ran McLaughlin HVAC and I ran McLaughlin Electric for the organization. After about 3 years, this is going into the Great Recession. Things were really tough, and I did I was supposed to stay 2 years was the plan. I ended up staying 3. I really wanted to stay longer than that, but the business got really challenging, and I wanted to do some different things. So I ended up leaving the job and really didn't have a plan. And Bryan and I used to work together at McLaughlin Electric, and he and I got together and really on a napkin in my dining room, we created the concept of AltaVista, which would be to help the contractor fill their marketing gaps.
Awesome. What was the other I'll clue the audience in our little story. What was the other concept you guys jotted down on that napkin?
Well, we did say that day we founded Grubhub before Grubhub actually existed. That is a true story.
So we somehow
but the good news is we realized we did not have the economic resources to fund that plan. So we were smart enough to not do that one.
Yeah, that was that was a tough one, right? Bryan, Ray kind of alluded to, you guys co-founded AltaVista on a napkin. Why don't you've been here day one, obviously. Why don't you give us a quick background on AltaVista?
Yeah, so I mean, look, we're here to help contractors grow their businesses, right? I knew Ray previously, and I saw someone who was a contractor, but he didn't, speak like contractors that I had heard before. He spoke about marketing strategies, and he spoke about growth, and he spoke about where the business would be down the road. He didn't speak about, changing light bulbs in, poles at shopping centers or bucket truck servicing or anything like that. So right off the bat, I was intrigued, and as we kind of got to talking and knowing each other, I realized that, Ray McLaughlin wasn't an electrician, he was a marketer, and that excited me, right? So we got to talking, like Ray said, I went to work for him selling electrical services and marketing electrical services to commercial property and facility managers in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. I learned so much about that space in the 3 years that I was there working for him. When he sold the business, the two of us kind of got together and decided, hey, let's think about how we can do what kind of Ray did at McLaughlin Electric with other contractors, right? Yeah. So as we kind of started out, we started small, obviously right in our backyard here in Baltimore. We started meeting with contractors. We talked to them. We learned about their pain points. We listened to what they were hearing, what they were seeing. And we went back and we sat down for a while and we said, hey, how can we help these people grow, right? So that's always kind of been the plan from day one, is what are our customers? What are the contractors that we're talking to, that we're hearing? What are they saying? What are their pain points? What are they looking for, right? How can we help them grow in this space? And that's really, how we modeled the business, right? We wanted to be a marketing company that can help contractors grow their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, and it's interesting, I think that core focus really remains today, right? Like, how do we partner with someone to help them achieve their goals? If they want to, they want more service work, they want more project work, they want to launch a service department. If they're a residential contractor and they want to, dominate their local market for roofing or painting, right? I think that's still kind of the goal today, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like Ray mentioned before, right? It's all about finding a need and filling it, right?
Yeah.
And each customer might have a different need. It's up to us to listen to their needs and do what we can to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I'll say I am personally thankful that Grubhub did come along, because I'm a heavy user, right? So, I'm thankful that someone did have the capital and the resources to do that idea. And I'll call Ray out too, because I do know that Ray has told me that he's had 3 separate DoorDash orders for dinner to his house on the same night because they couldn't get on the same page. So again, yeah. I know there's another DoorDash Grubhub user here too, right? So let's talk. Why did we launch this podcast? Kind of like a why now, why here, why this, right? Um, you know, Dunkel, I know you are on the sales front. You're talking to a lot of people. I think that was part of the behind the scenes conversation. Why did we think now was the time? And like, what do you think we're really here to talk about?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I know again, we interact with our clients daily. We always talk about an integrated approach, and that means we become an extension of our client's business. So for us, I mean, our clients are asking us a lot of questions. What are you seeing in my industry in other regions, right? Whether it's an asphalt client in Salt Lake City asking about, what is your asphalt client in Chicago, working with right now, or what are they seeing in the space? That's a really common question. Another thing people always ask is, what are some of your other clients doing? What's been successful from a marketing front? Whether that's strictly database marketing, whether that's, a heavy SEO approach, whether that's commercial targeted ads, paid search, social media, online reviews, which is obviously really big right now. And then really another big question is just, asking, are other contractors busy or slow? What are we seeing in general? So what's great having, almost 600 clients across the United States, right? We can crowdsource, right? We know what's working, what's not working, what clients are saying, what's been successful, and then we can utilize that, or at least be a resource or a sounding board for all of our clients.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? And one of the interesting things I'll share is, when I'm talking to somebody who is a potential customer at AltaVista, I'll say, hey, listen, right? One of the value adds that we bring to your business is I'm already working with 20 roofers in 20 major cities. I have a lot of insight to kind of what's working, what's not working, what are we seeing, what's the pulse, and what's all going on too, right? So, it is that kind of, I don't want to say behind the scenes information, but, we really do have a really good insight and look into the industry and kind of what's going on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so there's that too. And then I would say too, I as the host of the AltaVista Angle in the podcast, I think wanting to share some of that insight and some of that knowledge and some of that research and kind of understanding with a broader audience, because again, having 600 customers around the country, this is a way we can kind of put some of that shared knowledge out for everybody, not just our customers, but anybody in the space to kind of listen to and kind of hopefully get something out of it, right? What we're really here to talk about today, and one of the main things I want to bring up is a question that we're getting asked all the time, and that is, what are you guys seeing in the economy? What are your other clients saying about the economy? Are they busy? Are they slow? Right? And so, I think that's a core focus for what we want to talk about on this episode, right? We've seen different things in different places. Ray has a really strong pulse on this. Again, he aged himself, so it's not maybe the first time he's seen some economic uncertainty out here in his business career. Although I did graduate right into the Great Recession, my first job selling roofing, windows, siding, doors in home in 2008. That was a short stint on my professional resume. But, I want to kind of defer to Ray, right? So Ray, state of the contractor economy, we'll call it. What are we really seeing out there? And I'm going to lead right off with a big buzzword, and that is tariffs.
Yeah. So before we get to tariffs, let's talk about the cycles of the economy. In all of these businesses that we represent, you've got some businesses that are selling into the maintenance cycle. They're selling into the CapEx cycle. So if you're selling into the CapEx cycle, you should be monitoring the economy in some degree. And I know it's hard to do. But just for an example, we were working at the company that purchased our business was in the asphalt business. Well, milling machines are quite expensive. You don't want to go into the top of the economy and buy a milling machine, right? Because your capacity is going to be too high. You're going to have too much labor, too much equipment for when the businesses slow down. So I have always looked at the cycles of the economy to try to anticipate when to invest and when to sort of preserve cash. It can be challenging, right? I mean, it's difficult to do. However, when you look back at the COVID years, which I'm referring to 21, 22, and 23, those years were really amplified by the stimulus that was given by the government. And we saw massive increases, not only in our business, our clients' businesses grew rapidly. Everything just grew to a level of unsustainability. If we put a graph up on the wall of all of our clients from 2017 to 19 and 20, and then we take 21, 22, and 23 and part of 24, the numbers are astronomically different. But when we look at those numbers, we knew they weren't real. Even in 22 and 23, we knew these numbers were not new and not sustainable numbers. So obviously knowing the top was going to be into the economy, defining when that top would be is very challenging. Late last year in 24, we started to see a degradation in our numbers. And so we go to work internally. Brian's team on the database operations side starts to go to work. We started to see ad costs going up on the digital ad side, more competition for less work. That's a fact. That started to happen in late 2024. I know we were in a meeting in October of 2024 referencing the election. There was a significant amount of hacking going on in the election, and could this be impacting our results? And certainly those do impact our results, not only on the digital side, but on the database marketing side. My thought was, hey, the top is in on the economy. There's nowhere to go but down. How far do we go? I don't know the answer to that. But my anticipation was that 2025 would be a slower year. That has proven to be true. If we look at our results internally, our results are more normalized to a period prior to COVID, prior to the Fed printing money, prior to the stimulus. The free ride's over. We're back to a normalization of the economy. And that normalization looks more like 2019, which we were prepared on our side. And again, we're looking for quality business opportunities. So maybe the quantity is going to be lower, but we're still going to focus on the quality. I think that's really important to note. But if you really want to look at where we are in the economy, you have to look at the tariff situation, because we were slowing coming into the first quarter. I don't know if anyone follows the US GDP, but we had a negative print in US GDP in the first quarter of 2025. Nobody even saw it. I saw it. I wasn't quite that surprised. And then you factor in the cutbacks in government spending and the tariffs. And the tariffs are real. The tariffs are causing major retailers to pause their purchasing. We've heard not just anecdotally, but factual stories of major retailers pausing purchase order releases for not major CapEx projects, but more high-end maintenance projects. These are businesses that are doing really well, but they need to protect their profits, and they don't understand what the impacts of these tariffs are going to be on their profits. A lot of companies are absorbing the tariffs today. A lot of major manufacturers are actually absorbing them. I spoke to a friend who works at a major manufacturer. He says our firm is going to absorb the tariffs for a period of 90 days. And this is one of the biggest auto manufacturers in the world. For 90 days, we're going to absorb this. What's going to happen at the end of the 90 days? I had another story with a very large contractor, maybe $100 million provider, who told me they put an order in for some input costs, some goods, and those goods were going to cost him 25% more because of the tariffs that he wasn't anticipating. Now, these bids had been on the street, so his clients are high-end commercial buyers. I don't think he felt that he could go back to his clients at that point in time. So how long can that last? So my belief is if we get something done on the tariff side, things will probably return to a little bit normal. We are seeing a slowdown on the commercial side for sure when it comes to the tariff situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in general, just uncertainty, right? Is that kind of one of the broader themes you hear, that people don't like, the markets don't like uncertainty, people don't like uncertainty. I think that's something you hear, running up to the election. We're uncertain what's going to happen, who's going to win. I think that, you say if the tariff situation gets resolved, do you think that uncertainty is kind of a contributing factor there?
Yeah, it's absolutely a contributing factor. It's probably the main factor, but I think when you couple where we were already slowing down. And again, I'm not predicting recession, right? I mean, that's not what I'm here to do today. What I'm here to do is talk about we can look at our numbers over a period of 5 years and we can show you the graphs. And so we were already slowing down. The economy was already in slow mode.
Cool.
And then we throw tariffs on top and all that uncertainty. And then what are the impacts of the input costs going up? There's a lighting manufacturer, a $3 billion lighting manufacturer, that all they do is import lights from China. That's their whole business. So the cost of their goods are going up 130%. They are going to shut down their business. $3 billion company. Now they're more than likely going to restart the business, but rather than try to muddle through these uncertain times and 120%, they decided, hey, we're just going to shut down. And so, that has to impact the economy.
Yeah. And so as the economy is getting impacted, and we'll say, it's slowing down, it's getting weaker, the signals are there, right? What do we do? Right. And let's do a hypothetical, right? So I am a commercial roofer and I say, hey, Ray, I'm seeing my business is slowing down, or, hey, I heard the AltaVista angle, right? And now I want to talk to you guys, right? Well, that's the dream, right? And so, hey, what should I do? What can I do? What does that look like? Right. So, I'll maybe open that up to the group if anybody has any input there, but, we see it slowing down. You've lived this before. What do we do?
Yeah, I could jump in real quick. I mean, for me, obviously you need to have a plan, right? And any good plan, right, also involves a strategy, right? And the idea that, CapEx projects are going to maybe slowing down, or maybe some long-term bigger projects are on hold. We always know there's a need, service, maintenance, right? So how do you stay in front of your clients, right? How do you stay in front of your prospects, right? And obviously that's a good marketing strategy. That's a good marketing plan. A lot of people say you got to be at the right place at the right time. That's simply good marketing, good business development, right? So obviously that's a lot of what we do. Again, I have a sales brain, so that's where I go, right? Let's build a plan, let's find the need and let's fill that need. I don't know, obviously anyone else have any other ideas behind that?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that one really fast, right? I mean, March 2020 was a jolt to the world, right? If we go back to it, and scary times, all businesses, no one knew what was going on. You talk uncertainty, right? It was March 16th, 17th in Maryland. I think the realization was, hey, like, they're going to keep the air conditioning running at the hospital. They're going to fix the leaking roof at the apartment building. And I think just there to your commentary of a plan, a strategy, service, maintenance, repair, I think that's something that your comments made me think back to that kind of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then we had that kind of realization that, hey, people are still going to be doing some of this stuff, right? And things are still going to be going on, right? So, that just kind of what you said there kind of just reminded me of that time, a previous time in our business that we thought was pretty interesting. Ray, I know you love plans and strategy. Why don't you give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so there's two schools of thought, and I think it's just that it's a binary situation. That's it. You're either going to hunker down or you're going to take advantage of it. That's it. And understanding in your business when to hunker down is really critically important. I've been in this space for over 30 years. And I've been in multiple contracting companies. I own a general contracting company, I own an HVAC, I own an electrical. I lived through 4 recessions in my lifetime. And 3 of those recessions I didn't know I was even in, which is great. There was one that I knew I was in, certainly 2008, which lasted 2008, 9, and 10, and even piece of 11. That was a hunkered down recession. If you didn't hunker down in 08, you probably weren't going to make it. It didn't make sense to spend more money in 08 because nobody wanted to buy, and when they did, they didn't want to pay you. If your proposal was 80,000, they wanted to pay you 60. I had a time and materials ticket for a client in 2009 that I warned him was going to get upwards of $100,000. Big commercial buyer. We did the project. The bill came in at like $89,000, and he said, I can't pay it. And this was a high-end commercial buyer. And unfortunately, because they were a good client, we took 65,000. That wasn't uncommon in 2008. 9 bidders showed up to a job, to a large shopping center that I owned all the maintenance work. 9 bidders. You don't invest in times like that. You hunker down. I actually told the client I wouldn't even bid the job if he had 9 bidders, and I was awarded the job, FYI, because of that action. But there's no way I could bid a job against 9 people. Or 9 companies rather. So that's 2008. But those are rare. I mean, I hope to never see a 2008 recession in my lifetime again, and I actually don't think that I will. So what do you do? What do you do? Recessions are normal. The economic cycles are normal. We have expansion, we have a contraction. And so when you have a boom period where your business is great, you know a slowdown's coming. So do you hunker down or do you invest? Now, we have clients doing both. And I can share stories of a roofer that's more than likely over $50 million today that's hunkering down and their business is contracting. And I can also share another roofer that's about $15 million in sales that's thriving. His business is up 30% over last year. Now, those are rare stories. I've spoken to painters in Idaho. I've spoken to painters in Atlanta and Dallas and Richmond. The consistency that I'm hearing from all of these companies we're talking to is, yeah, it's slower, but we're not slow. Companies are still busy. So I do believe that it's a time to invest in your brand. It's time to invest in your brand, invest in your business. You know, maybe looking at your business and saying, hey, where's the waste in my company? Because when you're growing so rapidly, you get a significant amount of waste. I actually had this conversation with a large contractor last week. I was sharing our story, how we had grown 40% a year for the last 3 or 4 years. And that, you know, a lot of things get sideways when you grow that fast. So maybe it's time to dial things in now. Look at your business and say, hey, where's my waste? How do I invest in my brand? How do I maximize my sales and marketing efforts? How do I get the 7 or 8 touches that I need to close business most efficiently? Maybe it's time to let some people go who haven't been pulling their weight, right? The people that you carried through the good times and are struggling today, and sort of redefine your sales and marketing efforts. The people that, or the companies that invest in redefining their sales and marketing efforts are going to be the winners on the other side of this. That's the way I see it.
Oh, you know, you mentioned something there too. Touches on customers, brand. Those were 2 things that I really jumped out of there, right? Open question. Let's talk about brand, right? In the contracting space, you know, maybe let's talk about branding. Why is it so important? How does it impact? How does it influence? Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, your brand is your business, right? It's the first thing a client's going to see. And whether that's a good website, you know, whether that's a landing page from a paid search campaign, whatever it may be, right? Whether it's the tech showing up at the industrial facility, your brand is who you are, right? And so to Ray's point, I think our most successful clients have invested in their brand, right? And then on top of that, right? And Ray made a really good point in terms of touch points, right? Our most successful clients, you know, are 8 to 13 touch points, right? Before a potential sale. Now, obviously there's outliers there. But that also goes back to, you know, something I know Aaron has talked about, a buzzword is speed to lead, right? You know, not only the touch points, but when you get someone who is interested, how fast are you reaching out to that client, right? And a lot of that is obviously, you know, process internally. But I think this all speaks to a larger brand, right? And a larger, you know, conversation on how do you present yourself to your prospective client.
Yeah. And you mentioned website there, and I'm going to drill in on that one, right? Because you'll hear a lot of, oh, I'm a big, heavy commercial contractor. My website's not important. We still hear that. And, you know, my response there to this day is, tell me the last person you've done business with. Lawyer, doctor, banker, service company, you did not look at their website or look at them on the internet. Tell me the last person that you didn't look up that you did business with for the first time after they've been marketing to you or you found about them, right? Like, I just heard this guy's the best. I'm just going to take whoever told me that, and I'm not going to do any research on this whatsoever. It is just unequivocally not true. All marketing efforts and all brand touches, the website is a key part of the buying cog. That's just something that I feel very strongly about. And you mentioned it, so you opened the Pandora's box on my little interjection here. But right, I just, website, crucially important. It is the brand, one of the, it's probably the most visited, or it's the number one way where people are going to go see and interact with that brand outside of a face-to-face, outside of an interaction, outside of a phone call, right? But just super important to the process. You mentioned touches as well. We're obviously believing that 7, 8, 13, a lot of numbers going around. The answer is it's a lot. Bryan Nichols on the data side, talk about touches and data for a second, Bryan Nichols.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It takes a lot of touches, right? So the biggest thing to keep in mind is consistency, right? Build that plan, stay consistent, stay true to the process. Make sure that you are touching the people you want to do business with. You're touching your customers, you're touching your past customers, right? Build that plan, stay consistent.
Sure. And then, hey, Ray, we haven't heard from you on this one. I said it's a lot of touches. Any ideas on different ways we can do that?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a client the other day that embraces our advice. And I referenced my call and I said, look, I'm your lawyer. I'm giving you advice here. We're not here to sell you anything. We want you to take our advice. We want your brand to be well known. A lot of times people think, hey, they just want to sell me something. That has no bearing on what we're talking about. We want you to perform. And so when we look at our database marketing customers that are database marketing customers only, they do really well. They like the product. However, the customers that we truly embrace all the tactics out there that we can use. This particular customer is a multi-region customer of ours, and they have a region that's struggling. And they came to us and said, what ideas do you have that could get us more business or better opportunities? And we looked at the opportunities, and the opportunities were really good. These were commercial-based opportunities with plant managers, facility managers, high-end commercial property managers. What we found is that they weren't handling the opportunities well. They were slow to the punch. They weren't getting there. They weren't getting face-to-face meetings. They were treating these like bids. They weren't treating them like business opportunities. When somebody gives you an opportunity to come paint their rail at their house, that's a lead. You go out and you give them a price and you try to close the deal. But when you get an opportunity at the International Paper Plant in Dallas, right, you go meet that project engineer or the plant engineer to understand what their needs are. And they weren't doing that. They were bidding the work. Yep. And if you're going to go bid the work, you are wasting your money.
Yeah.
We should not, let me finish this statement, because we should not even, I said we shouldn't even be doing business with you. If you just want to bid the work, that's not doing your job. You're not meeting the client. You're not understanding the needs of that particular client. And if you don't understand that you're just a bid in that scenario, then your salespeople aren't doing their job. The client actually admitted to me that it was more of a sales challenge than an AltaVista challenge. However, our solution was, we're going to run targeted digital ads to their mobile phones, to their iPads, to their desktops, letting them know about your brand because you're new to that region. He had already invested in some serious SEO strategies that are actually doing very well, coupled with our database marketing strategies. And not that this matters, but this is such a long-standing client of AltaVista. We took these strategies and we're actually throwing some dollars behind them of our own money just to show the client that you should be doing these targeted commercial ads in every region you're in. If you're only touching them through an email, you're not maximizing that touch. You're just getting one touch. Yeah, we drive quality opportunities through emails. We've closed a $2.5 million roof on an email campaign. That client may have loved that particular opportunity. But again, if we're looking at this through the long lens, the long term, what's your brand look like? Does it resonate with your target? And quite frankly, a lot of our customers, their brand doesn't resonate with the target. And we'll tell you that. And you think we're trying to sell you a website. We're not.
Yep.
We're just trying to help your business.
Yeah.
And so does it resonate with the target? And then can we touch these people very efficiently through marketing versus very inefficiently through hiring more salespeople?
Yeah. And your example there, and I love all the examples in the talk, right? Large industrial, right? Contractor, properties, multi-state, market, regional. I'll even take it back to, we have a client, been with us a long time, right? It's a local roofing business. Their sales have gone up. I don't know the percentages, but it's 13 times where they started. So they started with us at this number, and it's 13 times that to where they are today. They have branded themselves about as well as anybody can, and they work basically predominantly in one county. They are exterior remodeling, roofing, windows, siding. And their goal has simply been, we want to be well known in our community. We want to, if someone's going to get a quote for a roof, we want them to just say, hey, that has to be one of the three. And their branding and their touch points are different than someone who's painting the International Paper Facility. But the idea of how they accomplish that, how they create the touch points, right? This client does the scoreboard at the high school, right? I'm not saying if you're trying to paint the warehouse for Prologis that you're going to go do the scoreboard at the high school unless, you live where all the Prologis guys live. That might not be the strategy, but the concept of putting the brand, the logo, the services in front of these people and building the brand, it's not just for the big guy. It's not just for the commercial guy. It's the residential guy, and it's also the building blocks, right? So, I thought that was an awesome example on the commercial side, but I wanted to just kind of share one on how it's super impactful. If you want to go work for Mrs. Jones when she needs a new roof, we also got to look at it for how are we going to go paint that warehouse, right? And kind of there's different ends of the spectrum. So I just wanted to kind of share that as a kind of an add-on there. Anyone else got anything they want to talk about kind of on marketing, branding, touch points? I got one more question I kind of want to maybe touch on before we roll, but everyone good on that one?
I think what I'd say is that it starts with the website. You had mentioned earlier, Aaron, that the website was important. It is more than important. You know this better than I do because you run the digital side of our business, but the content that's on the website, the brand, not just the way the website looks, but how that website is found. Sometimes people think, oh, my website's okay, nobody cares. But your website should be the tool to driving your future growth of the business. Yep. And we're not going to talk about AI today. I know we specifically said we don't want to talk about it. We're going to follow up. But when you look at how search is going today, AI engines, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, if your buyers start to use those engines to find the contractors that they want, whether it be residential or commercial, and you're not brand relevant, you're not doing SEO, you're not doing reviews. And a lot of commercial contractors don't do reviews, but that's what Gemini and ChatGPT and Grok are doing. They're reading reviews to determine what your relevance is. Someone told me SEO is dead. That is not true. It's totally inaccurate because SEO is that's what they read. They're reading the information you're putting out there. I had a customer say, why is this particular contractor ranked as the number 1 commercial such and such in America? And it's a big brand with a big budget, but they're not a great commercial contractor. And my answer was because they say they are.
Yep.
They're number 1 because they say they are. And if you're going to compete against the big brand for SEO, you're going to have to do some work. And if you want to be relevant in search, it is your website, it is your content. And if you ignore that, we're at a competitive disadvantage. And I have a hard time doing that for our clients. When we started AltaVista, we had 3 clients. Bryan and I used to go meet. We were running sales teams. We were driving overall strategy. We were building their proposals. We were putting print pieces together. We were doing hard mail. We have 600 clients today. We can't do all of that today for all of our clients, but this podcast is a way we can share these ideas, maybe have some follow-up conversations to what else we can do to help your business thrive even in a slower economy.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you said slower economy, and that was kind of actually a great segue point to end there on, Ray, because, what is you've done this before, slower economy. You got any rules to live by to build in a slowdown?
Rules to live by to build in a slowdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, we're all running businesses here. And so we look at our gross margin first and foremost. Like, our gross margin is what's near and dear to our business. If you're not monitoring your gross margin and you don't understand that your gross margin is declining, then you have a major problem. And when the businesses slow down and it gets more competitive, obviously your gross margin is going to change. I mean, when I was on the board of this major company, I watched their asphalt margins go to zero in 2008. I watched their margins go to zero in their general contracting business, but their fixed costs didn't change. Well, that's a formula for disaster. So you have to monitor your margins. If you're able to keep your gross margins at a level, I think you're able to sort of sustain your business. If your gross margins are contracting, I think you're going to have to cut some cost. You are. So understand where your gross margins are, understand the competitive nature of the bids, right? Am I bidding against 9 different contractors today, or am I bidding against 3? Do I have a competitive advantage in those bids? Can I still use my leverage of good service to win the work? Or am I going to lose the work because it's just price now? It's gotten so sensitive that it's just price. If you understand all of that, and you understand that my pipeline looks good, I have a good flow of recurring business coming in, I think you look at your business and you say, what do we want to do with the business today? Do we want to streamline it? Do we want to hunker down? Do we want to invest in the brand? Do we want to grow the business? And this is a great time. For the last 3 years, people were so busy. Companies, employees, everyone's just writing orders and figuring out more service. Even on the AltaVista side, we couldn't even handle the amount of upsell volume. People, I want more services. I want more services. Fortunately, we're fairly staffed at all times to handle more business. But our customers are not staffed like that. So it stresses the organization. So I do say, look at the organization, see where you are, see what you need. Do I need the current headcount that I need? And then again, look at the strategies, look at what you want to do, narrow down what is my best service. Maybe you do, industrial painting, maybe you do some apartment painting. Well, maybe apartment painting is not the best thing for you. Interior apartment painting doesn't seem to be as lucrative maybe as painting an industrial warehouse. So maybe you skinny down that piece of your business and focus on the pieces of your business that are more profitable. Maybe you're a residential roofing and siding and windows. Well, the window business is really competitive, and we know that because we see how competitive windows are. You're competing with the biggest and the best marketers out there. So maybe you want to take some of that window budget and send it over to the roof budget or the siding budget, or focus on some smaller projects, because that's what's really out there. And again, not knowing where we're going to be in 3 to 4 months, I don't think anyone can forecast that. Hopefully this is sort of the baseline for where we'll be. And if we get all this extra curricular tariffs and everything else we're dealing with out of here, we can actually get back to doing business.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some great points, right? Closing, right? We've been on here. We've been chatting through a bunch of different things. Anybody else got any kind of one last maybe closing thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I have something, and it's one of Ray's really core principles, and that's to differentiate, right? And this goes back to your brand, right? How are you differentiating yourself from the competition? And that goes to everything we've talked about. Again, whether that's your website, whether that's how you're found, whether it's the online reviews, whether it's, again, with the advent of AI, where are they sourcing that data, right? We know where that's sourcing, right? So again, differentiating your brand, right? Being that resource, for that prospective client, getting your foot in the door. I mean, these are really big things and really small things, right, that lead to the big, right? You get your foot in the door with a small repair job, right? 6 months down the road, when that CapEx project comes up, you're there. All right. So this is a big thing that we talk about internally. I know that's one of Ray's core principles.
Yeah, really valuing that business opportunity, right? That chance to go meet somebody that you want to do business with or could do business with, right? So differentiate your brand, touches, get your foot in the door. But then you said speed to lead earlier, right? So, when the opportunity presents itself, really just putting a ton of value on the opportunity, right? And understanding, hey, this is critically important to my business to go meet this person, tell them about my brand, understand their needs, and kind of work through with them, right? So, all good points. Bryan Nichols, Ray McLaughlin, any big takeaways here? Last closing words.
I'll just piggyback kind of on what Bryan said there, right? Like understanding the opportunity isn't just that job, right? This is a chance to build a relationship for repeat business, right? And if it's a client you want to get in front of, maybe it's going to take painting that handrail to get the paint job of the full exterior of that Prologis building, right? So once you kind of identify the companies you want to work with, right? When you get in front of them, know that that's not it, right? It's going to take more touches. It's going to take more jobs, right? It's going to take more effort to really build that relationship. But like Bryan said, getting your foot in the door is a huge piece of that, right? Once you get your foot in the door, you have that opportunity to build that relationship, right? If it is a big, international paper factory or warehouse, like Ray had mentioned before, go meet with the guy, go meet with the plant manager, go meet with the person that's in charge of the maintenance work there. Build that relationship, keep your brand in front of them, differentiate yourself from what your competition is doing. And it's really going to open up that relationship for repeat business.
Yeah, for sure. Bryan Dunkel quote, AltaVista will help you open the door. You kick it down, right?
That's right.
So that's a good Bryan Dunkel quote. We'll help you open the door. You got to kick it down. Ray, I'm sure you got one last closing thought, takeaway, comment here for us.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of clients asking us for this, which, I love getting on calls with clients, but when you have 600 clients, it's really difficult. So we started this podcast so we could share our experiences. We've been doing this for 11 years. And Bryan and I have been in the space for 19 years. Well, I've been in space for 30. Bryan's been in for 19 years. And obviously Aaron and Bryan Dunkel are very well versed in the contracting space in general. And I think we have a lot of value and a lot of information that we can share with our clients. And we're also to get more tactical. This is just kind of who we are, what we know, and how we can help your business. I actually am kind of ashamed of myself for not remembering my number one rule in business. So I thank Bryan Dunkel for bringing up the differentiate. But I was in a meeting last week and I said in a room of 17 people, what's the number one rule in business? And it's differentiation. I mean, there's a lot of rules, but if you can differentiate yourself, you can impact price, you can impact profit, right? Otherwise you're just a commodity. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of stuff today, but I think when we move on, we're going to get into sales best practices. We're going to get into AI. We're going to get into everything that we see in the industry that's going to affect your business. So Aaron, thanks. You guys were great. Thank you for having us on today.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, that's a wrap on the first episode of the AltaVista Angle, right? We appreciate everybody tuning in. We look forward to, future episodes. We're going to hopefully be dropping one of these every couple of weeks. We do have our next one planned. It's going to be all about sales best practices, right? So we know we'll have some good insights there on how we can help, look at our sales process and hopefully, make them better. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions, you want to talk with us, feel free to check us out online, AltaVistaSP.com. You can Google AltaVista Strategic Partners as well. If you do that, I always drop. We got some outstanding online reviews. We really stress those for all of our customers, and we practice what we preach. But, we'd love to chat with you if you have any questions. Again, I'm Aaron Hockel, along with Bryan, and Ray. We really appreciate you tuning into this episode of the AltaVista Angle, and we look forward to, having you back for a future episode.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
You.